I got 9 toys right here. I got the 488 Ferrari. I got the Maybach or the Maybach, whatever you want to call it. I got 7 Rolls Royces right here. I like to call it Lucky 7. But then I say, "F it. If I want to bring out the one and only, then I bring out the watch that costs 18 million. Matter of fact, you know what I'm gonna do for you today? I'm gonna go call $50,000 because I ain't got else to do. Money made. All my day.
How did barriers to wealth building shape Black consumerism, and why do we sometimes spend money on stupid shit to impress people we don't like? Let's have a talk. I always hear niggas say things like y'all buy Jordans and don't have money for anything else, or we'd rather have the latest clothes than pay bills, or our money doesn't stay in the Black community. And while some of those claims might hold some semblance of truth, there's very different and dark reasons for why it may seem as if we're always trying to keep up with the Joneses. As Black people, we're known for having a very unique way of expressing ourselves. From the cars we drive, the way we talk, the way we walk, the way we dance, the style that we have, because we like to put that shit on. And because these images are amplified throughout music, sports, and social media, this has created a weird perception of how the vast majority of us actually spend our money, outside of all the influencers, artists, athletes, or whatever. And this brings us to the Black dollar, which is the buying power that we have in the United States, which amounts to $1.7 trillion in annual spending. And it represents the collective purchasing influence of Black consumers, often used to promote Black-owned businesses, foster community circulation, and influence corporate social responsibility. In the past, between the 1940s and 50s, the Black dollar was referred to as the double-duty dollar, and it was popularized by figures like Leon Sullivan and Marcus Garvey. And they saw it as a way to empower their community, promote Black ownership, and challenge businesses that didn't hire Black people. A little bit different than how we view our money today, being that civil rights was at the forefront of that time period. But just to provide some actual factual research up front, findings from the most recent US Bureau of Labor Statistics report done for Black households in 2010 and 2012 shows that the majority of our spending went toward housing at around 37.4%, with transportation and food at 16% each. And that brings us to around a 69% total. More recent 2024 national spending data shows those same categories still dominate household budgets overall, Black and white. However, Black households face higher housing burdens. So most of the money in the Black community is spent on necessities, not reckless spending on chains, Jordans, clothes, and BBLs, but survival-based budgeting under constraint. And that's where that narrative starts to fall apart. When we start to look outside of the necessities, that's when it gets a little bit more complicated, because now the conversation shifts to identity, cultural alignment, representation, and trust, which are major themes under the umbrella of brand loyalty, which is super important for where we spend our money and closely ties back to the concept of the double duty dollar in its purest form. And one of the clearest examples of identity-based spending is the beauty industry, because for decades, we often had to search harder for products that actually worked for us, whether it be hair products, moisturizers, skincare, makeup, head wraps, you name it. I can't tell you how many times my mom used to cover me in Vaseline or cocoa butter before I went to school because she said that it was good for our skin, or it was good for if you get into a fight, or how my dad would keep Murray's on the bathroom counter to keep his waves fresh. These products became staples in the Black community because they were accessible, effective, and trusted throughout generations. And that matters way more than basic marketing with commercials and pop-up ads and shit. It's baked into the Black identity, at least for African Americans. There was a need of representation filled when retail options were slim. So we're willing to put the money we do have left over toward these kinds of things. For example, according to private market research done by McKinsey & Company, 75% of Black consumers said they're more likely to buy from ads showing racial diversity. But when identity-based consumption is paired with psychological connection and trust, it's not just about selling a product anymore. So what happens when that trust gets exploited? Well, we have things like the Gucci incident, where they released a Sambo-inspired turtleneck back in 2019. H&M, they released a sweatshirt with the phrase "the coolest monkey in the jungle" on it, and they used a Black child as the model. Burberry put out new strip, Prada released a black monkey keychain that had big ass red lips. Moncler dropped their shitty Sambo line, and even Katy Perry's dense ass released a shoe that resembled a Sambo as well. I'm bringing these incidents up because some of these brands were seen as status symbols in the black community. Rappers, athletes, and other famous people held these brands in high regard and indirectly or even directly influenced a lot of people in our community to purchase things from these brands. And that's just the clothing market, right? We have Aunt Jemima being forced to rebrand because of how offensive that shit was. Pepsi with the Kylie Jenner shit, Papa John's. We could be here all day talking about this, all right? I'm pretty sure you get the point. These companies wanted black cultural influence and spending power, but lacked the cultural awareness to avoid disrespecting the consumers, helping make them relevant. And some of us still running by they shit. Probably me included. Because not only are these companies selling a product, they're selling status. Which brings us to overconsumption, something that was always pretty bad, to be honest. You can look at early Black Friday clips from the 2000s and see people getting trampled in the wee hours of the morning for material that we don't give a fuck about today. This has been made worse by social media, influencer culture, and again, status signaling. This isn't anything unique to the black community, but it's something that we do participate in. And this is where people love to hyper focus on niggas waiting in line for Jordans, when you also have soccer moms bum rushing Starbucks for that stupid ass Bear Cup, or stampeding Target for a damn Stanley Cup to post on an Instagram story that'll be gone in 24 hours, just ignoring all the structural issues like they don't exist. The contrast here is that black consumption tends to be way more visible and more criticized and often disconnected from the larger conversation around black ownership from a historical standpoint. So the issue isn't who the consumers are, it's who gets judged more for doing it. But we're still left with a question. Why does status matter so much in the first place? And the answer doesn't start with spending. It starts with history. As we peel back more layers, we can start to understand why some of us in the black community put so much emphasis on status symbols or flashy displays of wealth. And in my opinion, it starts with the destruction of black wealth, most notably the Tulsa Race Massacre, the destruction of Black Wall Street. Depending on where you live in the United States, you may have learned about this, but if not, Black Wall Street was the name of Tulsa, Oklahoma's Greenwood district. It was one of the most prosperous African-American cities in the United States. It had 11,000 African-American residents, over 100 black-owned businesses, including banks, hotels, luxury shops, whatever, and black people actually owned their homes until 1921. And in 1921, a black man was accused of assaulting a white woman. Obviously, it was bullshit. So instead of white people in that area waiting for due process, they burned 35 city blocks, killed 300 people, and injured a total of 800 people. The police were involved as well, of course, and they disregarded due process, arresting black people in the street and sending them to detention camps. Sounds very familiar, doesn't it? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But to sum it up, afterwards, the government and private industry worked together to bring down land prices and maintain white dominance in Tulsa. So to be precise, 2 days after the riot, the mayor established the Reconstruction Committee to redesign the Greenwood district for industrial purposes, and black people were offered below market value for their homes, which were major wealth building assets. And Tulsa was not a standalone event. Similar scenarios happened all across the Bible Belt, of course. It's always the fucking Bible Belt. It was a pattern. But let's put a list together. The Rosewood Massacre in Florida, the Williamton Insurrection in North Carolina, the Elaine Massacre in Arkansas, the Ocoee Massacre in Florida, the Atlanta race riots, the Colfax Massacre in Louisiana, and the Red Summer, which took place across several different cities. And most of these take place around the same time period. Very fishy. And we can just travel through time and see the other things that disrupted black wealth building across multiple generations, excluding slavery, because we all know how them people like to talk about how slavery just doesn't have lasting effects upon generations and generations. So bet. We have lynchings that targeted successful black land and business owners, redlining, which labeled black neighborhoods dangerous, which made mortgages impossible to get, the GI Bill discrimination, we were blocked from getting those as veterans who fought and died for this fucking country, employment discrimination, gentrification, mass incarceration. I feel like I'm spitting bars at y'all niggas, all right? Predatory lending, which was one of the factors, major factors, in fact, contributing to the 2008 financial crisis, and underfunded schools. Just to keep it light, nothing too crazy. You know, just disruption at every stage of wealth building. Nothing serious. Don't want to piss off the DEI naysayers, even though white women benefit the most. including all the weirdos that love to say,
pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
So what we can take from this is that consumption was allowed, but ownership was very limited, which in my almost humble opinion is part of the reason why when we do achieve wealth or even just financial stability, we want to show the world and also prove to ourselves that we've made it. We don't just buy a car, we buy some nice shit. We don't just buy clothes, we buy some luxury shit. We don't just buy a house, we buy our mama a house too, and so on and so on. I think the perfect lyric to capture the picture I'm trying to paint for you is when Jay-Z said, if you grew up with hoes and you zap your toes, you celebrate the minute you was having dough. To me, that sums up exactly what I'm trying to say and how a lot of us in the Black community feel. And this is something companies know and take advantage of, and also where the story starts to take a turn, because these companies didn't just sit back and watch what was happening. They studied it, and studied it so much they even made a short film for how to sell to us called The Secret of Selling the Negro.
To be able to tell you the secret of selling the Negro, we did a lot of digging. We talked to leading businessmen, the customers, and the salesmen. We went to Washington, D.C. We set up cameras and other key points around the nation. And out of this all, there emerged a story, the story of a new market.
The secret that the film is referring to is recognition, and it argues that since African American consumers have faced exclusion and poor service, that we would show intense brand loyalty to businesses that treated us with respect and dignity. It also aimed to debunk the myth that African American consumers only bought cheap goods, when in reality, we prefer high quality name brand products as symbols of prestige, which aligns with a lot of what we're seeing today. So while wealth was being disrupted across generations, corporate America was learning how to profit from Black consumers. Ownership was restricted, but consumption was encouraged. I don't think it'd be a stretch to say that this film helped set the foundation for how we've been marketed to since the 50s. The playbook is the same. Companies just have way more ways to call audibles now. It's not just Ebony and Jet magazines at barbershops anymore. There's more pathways to intrigue us and convince us to purchase products, especially now that celebrity worship is at all-time highs. There's way more insecurities to poke at to make a dollar. And what exacerbates things is the fact that we as Black people decide a lot, if not all, of what's popular around the world, from clothing, music, dance, sports, slang, body type. Just look around you. There's not much that hasn't had our cultural influence across the entire world from a mainstream marketability standpoint. And as it stands now, we drive a lot of industries we don't control. And until ownership catches up with influence, that gap isn't gonna close. So when you put all this together, overall, I think overconsumption is a symptom and not the root cause of economic inequality. I mean, no shit. It's a no-brainer that people have to be responsible for their own financial decisions, but it'd be pretty ignorant to just ignore all the history that got us here in the first place. Multiple things can be true at the same time. I know the internet would love to have you believe that shit is just black and white, but real life doesn't work that way. And that's the reality people don't like to talk about, because when you paint the full picture, it was never just about spending. It was about who was allowed to build wealth. Thanks for watching.